All right, let's talk a little bit about last week. I haven't talked to you since the Thursday nighter. We saw each other, in the elevator on the way down to the locker room, and we were riding the elevator with a bunch of fans, and they were joyous. They were feeling good. They were shouting out our YouTube channels, which was even better. But there was a lot of excitement over that one. And one of the things you said to me was, "Man, it was amazing how much Martindale brought the blitz." And I didn't realize until you spit out the percentage that how many blitzes. And then when I got home that night and I had a chance to rewatch the All 22 on the NFL Plus over the next 24 hours, it wasn't just that they brought the blitz and the percentage. It was the array of exotic blitzes and different blitzes that Martindale kept bringing over and over. And it's hilarious to me, Dave, that people viewed Brock Purdy as playing poorly in this game. I could make a strong argument that might have been his best game. Just from the standpoint, I know it didn't look good, and I know there were some bad throws in the first half, but just the way he threw with anticipation. The one that really stands out to me is the one that Baldinger highlighted in his film review, where basically Purdy had a free rusher coming at him. Giants had a 6-man surface, and the Niners had to block it with 5, so you knew one guy was going to shake free, and it was the right outside linebacker who came flying off the edge at Purdy. Purdy literally had to either take the underneath route or throw it to Ronnie Bell well before he even got close to his break, and had to put it in a spot near the pylon that nobody was there, and he had to kind of create the whole route for Ronnie. And man, between these are the last 2 7th-round picks. Purdy threw with anticipation. The ball came out well before the break. Ronnie breaks at the right spot, turns around, and makes a wonderful catch and gets 2 feet down. That's the kind of anticipatory throw that's really, really high level and impresses guys like Kyle Shanahan. And yet, for whatever reason, it doesn't impress the fans who were just like, he was bad. It's like, not only was he not bad, this was maybe his best game when you factor in the blitz and the anticipatory throws.
Well, okay, so there have been 3 games. The most efficient quarterback on 3rd and 4th downs in all of football, even more efficient than Tua Tagovailoa, whose offense hung 70 on the Dolphins, has been Brock Purdy. So there's no way in hell that Brock Purdy was bad against the New York Giants, because the sample's not big enough. If he had a bad game against the Giants, he's not ranking first in that. That's expected points per play. That's efficiency. It's a smart stat that looks at exactly how he's performed relative to down and distance. And that's relative to 3rd and 4th down. I still remember the big 4th down conversion against Pittsburgh to really set the tone for this 49ers season. But that Bell play, I believe, was on 3rd down as well. I mean, it makes the claims that Brock Purdy has a weak arm or a mediocre arm completely laughable. Just put that tape on. Brian Baldinger highlighted it. He does such a great job, but he highlighted that throw. He's throwing off his back foot against a 6-man rush against the free rusher. And people don't realize that football fields are 53 1/3 yards wide. They're not narrow. It's almost an optical illusion when you look at the field, because it's 120 yards long, counting the end zones. You think that it's much skinnier than that. They're actually 53 1/3 yards wide. So when you're throwing across the hash to the pylon, that's some serious distance. And if that throw hangs at all, that's going to be a pick. Yeah, it's going to be a pick.
And it's a pick 6, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably a pick 6. There's nobody there unless Brock Purdy can tackle and run after the cornerback, which I don't think he could do when he's on his back foot falling away from the play, probably going to get knocked down. I mean, the physicality of that throw is what jumped out to me. Now, also obvious, multiple things can jump out to you. The anticipation, he's letting go of that ball before Bell's out of his break. And then, the 7th round is the new 5th round for the 49ers, right? Brock Purdy, Ronnie Bell delivering. Maybe we're going to see Jalen Graham start to deliver for this team as well at some point. But it really does seem that they're scoring in that 7th round. But there were so many plays like that, Larry. Again, the 3rd down efficiency, they call that the quarterback's down, the money down. Brock Purdy and the 49ers were 9 of 16 on 3rd down, which is really damn good, especially considering the fact that a lot of the discombobulation of the offense seemed to happen on 1st and 2nd down, which made the 3rd downs tougher in this game, right? But early on, my favorite throw of the game, Juwan Jennings right over the middle, right? But the casuals, as I like to call them, said, "Oh, Purdy threw it behind him." Then you watch the tape and you see the safety coming across the middle of the field. If that throw is not behind Juwan Jennings, it's either
It's
batted
picked.
down or intercepted. Yeah,
Yeah.
it had to be behind him. So you have these people who casually watch on TV, not knowing what they're watching, and then they just throw a bunch of crap out there on the internet saying, "Oh, he threw it 2 steps behind him," as if they could somehow do better, right? If they're in an NFL pocket, the way that they say this. But then you actually watch the tape; it had to be behind him. Purdy did that on purpose, and this is happening several times. There's a reason that Kyle Shanahan said this guy's the real deal this offseason, heading into the season, and it's because he saw stuff like this on tape over and over and over again, and now we're seeing it over and over and over again. And this is why we have the advanced stats, because it takes the bias out of things. Is the guy producing on third downs or is he not? Well, there's one quarterback ranked number 1 in the league right now, and it's Brock Purdy. The answer is yes, he's consistently producing on third downs, and that takes all the bias out of it.
I was asked a lot this week. I was on 95.7 The Game with Matt Steinmetz and Daryl the Guru Johnson, and they were asking me to kind of compare Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. And I've talked to a bunch of people around the team, a bunch of people who know Brock Purdy. I know a scout who scouted Brock Purdy his senior year. I also know a scout who scouted both Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy because he had different regions of the countries in different years for an AFC team. And he said, Krug, the main difference is between the ears. That Brock Purdy is a really, really smart football player who can process more variables faster than Jimmy G. You could argue Jimmy has a stronger arm. You could argue Jimmy can throw with anticipation the same way Brock can. But the one thing he said was that he felt like Brock was more wed to the process of football, Monday through Saturday. In preparation, but really he actually made the statement that he felt like Brock was smarter than Jimmy as a football player. And I thought this would be a perfect question to throw to you. I agree with that, and I've talked to some other 49er people who feel the same way, but you're an independent thinker. I mean, you saw Jimmy, and Jimmy had a lot of success, and we don't want to denigrate Jimmy in any way, but what do you think of those two observations, that Brock is more wed to the process non-game day, and that generally he's a smarter person and a smarter a quarterback than Garoppolo?
Well, when you're looking for offensive efficiency, then it's the job of the play caller and the quarterback to unite, right? That brain trust at the top of the offense has to work in unison. I think that Purdy works in unison with Kyle Shanahan, the way that Purdy sees the game, the way that Purdy processes the game. I think he works in unison with Kyle Shanahan better than Jimmy Garoppolo did. I will say that Jimmy Garoppolo, his game anticipation was really good, especially in the 49ers system. We saw it. I know there's been some struggles. He didn't look very good on Sunday night, didn't look fully comfortable yet with the Raiders, but with the 49ers from 2017 to 2022, when you look at the same third down efficiency stat that I just pulled for Brock Purdy, he's number 1 in the league. The only quarterback more efficient on third downs from 17 to 22 than Jimmy Garoppolo was Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs. So, and we saw it time and time again. Jimmy would somehow find that window on third down. He would step up in those big moments. But the interception rate was higher than Brock Purdy's was, except for last season where Jimmy was able to cut out the interceptions. Maybe you credit Brian Griese for that. But I always sensed that there was a little bit of a tug of war between Shanahan and Garoppolo. Garoppolo wanted the offense a little bit more along the lines of what he had come up with, and it was a run and shoot offense at Eastern Illinois, and then he played in that Patriot style system, so he wanted things a little bit differently. Shanahan wanted the way that he ran offense, and he wanted to imprint that on Jimmy Garoppolo. And it a couple times I think it even reached a public boiling point. I think it was after week 2 when they played Seattle last year. It was funny because Garoppolo came in for Trey Lance, right? And the 49ers had the Lance offense installed, which involved some more downfield passing. And Garoppolo just had to take the reins of that offense. And he did a really good job. He came in cold turkey and executed the Lance offense. And this is something I talked to him about in the locker room. And he's like, yeah, I want to see more of those plays. There was a little bit of frustration I sensed there. And but obviously this was just a conversation between me and Jimmy. But then Jimmy steps up to the podium and I asked him a question, and he directly referenced the conversation that we were having in the locker room because he wanted it on the record. And he said, "Yeah, I'm hoping that we start taking more shots like that." And that told me right away that Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, I mean, he wanted to send a clear message. He wanted things to be a little bit different. And I just think that Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan are in more lockstep than Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan were. Now, that's not to say that the Garoppolo era was a failure for the 49ers. It was tremendously successful in many ways. Efficiency, wins. I mean, this team did a lot with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think both men got the best out of each other, but that relationship, ran its course. And now Kyle Shanahan has a quarterback that can do a lot of the same things that Jimmy can as far as the release, as far as, the intermediate accuracy. But maybe Kyle Shanahan could take this efficiency up yet another notch because he is in better lockstep with with Brock Purdy than Jimmy Garoppolo. And if you talk to somebody like Steve Young, I mean, he said this multiple times. He thought there was always a little bit of that disconnect between Garoppolo and Shanahan. And I think that Steve will tell you he's seeing Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan on the same page in a way that we might not have seen yet from a Shanahan quarterback.